Do a little bit of definitions before you start your domain and range of a function notes. In those notes, you will have the video for Kirk where he is going step by step through the notes. I do want you to try to do them without looking at the video first, and then maybe go back to the video to fill in any gaps that you may have missed going through them yourself. But we do need to look at a few definitions before you get started in that. First one is a function and defining what a function is. So a function is a relation between a set of inputs to a set of outputs so that each input has exactly one output. So we're talking about inputs and outputs here. So hopefully that is reminding you of two terms, and that is domain and range. So the set of inputs is your domain. Say the domain is your set of inputs, and typically those are our x values because we talk about on the graph our x-axis and our y-axis. So your set of domain is your input values, and then the range is your output values. Okay, so going back to what a function is. So a function is a relation from a domain to a range, so that each domain value has exactly one range value. Okay? So for example, looking at this first problem here, our domain is the set of inputs, so those are our x values. So in this case, the domain is looking at how far to the left, and how far to the right that this function goes. Well, we saw that this graph stopped here, but then it goes on forever because there's a little arrow there. If you remember, an arrow means it's going to go on. So the domain for this is from whatever that value is to infinity, because that graph continues going. Whereas on the next problem, looking at our range, we're looking at how low and how high it goes. So take a look at this graph. There are arrows, so this is going to keep going down forever. So our range is going to go down forever as well. And then we want to look at how high it goes. So the highest that this graph goes is right there. So our range is from that highest point there and then on down forever. Okay? So let's take a look at an example here with this graph. We're going to look at two ways to write the domain and range. You have your set builder notation, and then you have interval notation. Okay? So let's first take a look at the domain. So again, domain is how far left and how far right the function goes. So when we look at this graph, the furthest to the left that it goes, it doesn't go any further than that. So this is the lowest domain value. And so how high does it go? So that's where it stops there to the right. So it doesn't go any further to the right than that. Okay? So the furthest left that it goes is -2. The furthest to the right that it goes is 3. And then it's everywhere in between. So you have points everywhere in between. So it's between -2 and +3. Now, one thing that we need to recognize is whether -2 and +3 are included or not in the domain. So when we look at an x value of -2, this output value is an open circle. So what does it mean if it's an open circle? It means that it's not included. It goes right up to -2, but it doesn't actually include -2. So -2 is not included. I'm going to put a parenthesis there. We're going to talk about why I'm putting the parenthesis there when we talk about interval notation. So from -2, and then when we look at the input value of 3, there is an actual point there. So that means 3 is included. So I'm going to put a bracket there. So that means 3 is part of the domain. and it includes 3. If you plug in 3, you're going to get out 1. Okay? So when we talk about set builder notation, when we're writing our domain, so when we're writing our domain, set builder notation, so we have our bracket, and we're saying that it's our domain, so this is our x-axis, so it's saying that it's the x values such that, okay, and we just see that it's between -2 and +3. It includes +3, but does not include -2, because at -2 we see that it's an open circle. So -2 is our smallest. Okay, so -2 is the smallest. It's not included. So I'm not going to put an equal to symbol there. So it's -2 less than x, and x is less than or equal to 3, because 3 is included. That's a closed circle. It's included. That's an actual point there. So when we write this in interval notation, so the way that we represent something being included or not included, if it is not included, then we're going to have a parenthesis. If it is included, then we're going to have a bracket. So here in interval notation, the domain is going to be parenthesis -2, that's our smallest, and -2 is not included. And then it goes up to 3, and we're going to have a bracket, because 3 is included. So that's how you get your domain in set builder notation and in interval notation. Let's now look at the range. So range, we're looking at how low does it go and how high does it go. So looking at this graph, the lowest that it goes is right here. Okay, so the lowest that it goes is -2. Now we want to look at how high does it go. So the highest value that it goes is here. That's the highest, that's the peak point there. So the highest that it goes is +3. So now we're going to talk about, are they included or not included? So -2 is, there is an actual point there that's going to give us an output of -2. So that's going to be a bracket, because it's included. There is a point here that has an output of 3, so again, that's going to be a bracket that it's included. So in set builder notation, looking at our range, okay, and our range is our y values. So it's the set of all of y values such that the lowest that our y value goes is -2. It's included, so less than or equal to. And we're talking about our y values. And then the highest that our y values is 3, and again that is included. So we'll have the equal to symbol there. And then in interval notation, both are included. So we will have bracket. The smallest is -2. The highest is +3, and we're going to close that with a bracket as well. Okay. One thing that we do want to talk just a little bit about is coming back here and looking at these two examples. We want to look at these two examples because these have some infinity going on here. So we see that this goes on for infinity and this goes down for infinity. So when we want to look at our domain for this problem, so let's say that this problem, the furthest back that it went was -5. So let's say that's a -5 right there. So -5 would be included, so -5. Okay, and then it goes forever that way, so to infinity. You can't include infinity. Infinity is not a set number, so we would have to use a parenthesis in that case. So that is domain in interval notation. Now if we were to say this in set builder notation, this is going to be the set of x values such that, and it's all the x values that are greater than or equal to 5. So we would say the set of x values such that x is greater than or equal to negative 5. Okay. Now let's look at this problem here with range. So again, we're going to look at the range. And we're seeing that the highest that it goes here is up to some number. We'll put something in there in a second, but then it's infinity in the negative direction. Okay, so let's say this number here is a 2. Okay, so the lowest, you always go with range or domain, is the smallest to the highest. So if we want to write this in interval notation, the lowest that it goes, well, there is no lowest that it goes forever. So it's going to be from negative infinity, and we're going to use again a parenthesis there because you can't include infinity. And then the highest that it goes was 2, and 2 was included, so we'll use a bracket in that case. So when we're talking about in like set builder notation, so it's the y values such that, well, we're talking about all y values that are less than 2. So we would say y values such that y is less than or equal to, because 2 is included, the number 2. So that's how you would deal with set builder notation and interval notation when you have a graph that does not end. So again, just kind of looking at the whole picture here, what you need to be able to do in this lesson here is understanding domain is your set of inputs, range is your set of outputs, and then you will also look at set builder and interval notation.